So she messages me and she goes, I'm just really disappointed because you're someone I look up to and you copied my video and I want credit.
You feel scared because this other creator has so much power and influence, they can literally squash you and your entire existence.
She even admitted, well, kind of, that she was restructuring her channel to kind of mock my own channel.
One of the most terrifying and stressful times in my life.
I'm gonna try and keep it vague so I don't mention this person's channel, but it's a very small YouTuber.
I was terrified of losing my baby.
So if you haven't heard, Cruel World Heavy Mind has released her response to the Illuminati situation and what exactly happened and how it went down. This was a well-researched 2-hour-long video that she went over every little part of everyone that was involved and had her response and what exactly happened at the end of it. From everything that was going on the internet, I knew a good bit of the story, but I never heard it directly from her. And hearing it from her sent chills through my body. It was intense. And there's some things that Cruel World Heavy Mind said that really stood out to me that I would like to take a deeper look into and talk about it. And one of the main things I'd like to talk about is the pregnancy. How she was pregnant during this whole thing and how the stress affected her. And I wanted to look at how stress really affects somebody while they are pregnant and the effects it has on them, just to help you understand and help me understand like how messed up Illuminati is, like even more so, you know. And it's scary to think about that she's willing to go that far to affect somebody's baby or to affect them during such a sensitive time, just so she can get more views on YouTube or something. Like what? Which we have seen her kind of do already with Wonderstruck. You know, she did this in the past, and then fast forward to the future and she's doing the same thing with Wonderstruck, exposing his vulnerable information when he's the most vulnerable, hoping to cause possibly something. Because I believe that what Illuminati was doing to Madison was evil. And while you may already know that Illuminati is a messed up person, I want you to realize how messed up she really is, because when you do a little research on what stress does to a woman and her baby, it's crazy. On some level, Illuminati probably knew this. She knew that stress wasn't good for somebody that wasn't pregnant, and that's why one of the main reasons why she did everything she did. She was hoping to possibly do something quite evil. And on top of that, Madison was already experiencing a lot of sickness from this pregnancy.
In the first few weeks of January, being so sick that I can't even get up out of bed, that I can barely even move.
And I was so scared during early pregnancy, which is called the first trimester. It's a really fragile state of pregnancy. You want to limit stress as much as possible, and you want to rest as much as possible. So I was terrified of losing my baby at that point. And so I was trying so hard to limit my stress and stay as healthy as possible, because I was already really, really sick. And so the doctors were just urging me to stay healthy and limit my stress.
So with that in mind, she was just trying to limit the stress the whole time. And she was worried about the baby. And what does Illuminati do? She applies pressure. And she does this by threatening Madison's career. And just to make it clear, in case you don't know, Illuminati knew that Madison was pregnant throughout this whole thing.
Blair put me through all of this. You knew I was pregnant and you still attacked me online.
So just combining some more extra stress because she's losing her career possibly on top of that, that's horrible. I'm sure you've experienced what it feels like to possibly lose your job. Maybe something has been compromised and there's a possibility you may not have a job next month or something. And then you start worrying about bills, and then you start worrying about your future. Maybe you live with somebody, maybe you have kids, maybe you're gonna have kids. The stress just keeps stacking up, and eventually it can cause health issues on top of the health issues that you already have. And if you're carrying a child, that's health issues for that child. And there's a lot of research that has been done that shows that These health issues affect the child all the way up into their 40s, which blows my mind. Hey, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're getting really close to 4,000 subscribers. Thank you. And when I say health issues, I'm focusing in on the stress that was caused from this whole feud, this whole drama with Illuminati. So I became curious and I started looking around on Google and figuring out what exactly does stress do to you when you're in your pregnancy. Because, I'm sure that if you are a little knowledgeable about pregnancies and understand what stress can do to you while you're pregnant, you could possibly use that and weaponize that towards somebody, right? But my question is, can you really, cause harm? And I already think so, because stress in general is painful. As you know, stress sucks. It sucks a lot. But imagining if it already does a lot to you, imagine what it does to a baby that you could be carrying. So I Googled the worst case scenario. Can stress cause you to lose your baby? And so I came upon this that says there is no evidence that stress results in you losing your baby. Now keep that in mind, because later on we're going to look how I believe that stress still can cause you to lose your baby indirectly. Now, Illuminati may have not known that these things can happen to the baby due to stress, but she definitely possibly could have been wanting to cause some stress, some pressure, some discomfort for her in order to get her off YouTube. And what better time to do this than when she was pregnant? So the question is, what can chronic stress do to you then if you're pregnant, especially if you're already feeling ill and not in the right headspace like Madison was? And you got to remember that Madison was already really sick from being pregnant. So adding some stress on top of that, chronic stress on top of that, that's a recipe for disaster. During pregnancy, stress can increase the chances of having a baby who is preterm, born before 37 weeks of pregnancy, or a low birth weight baby weighing less than 5 pounds and 8 ounces. Babies born too soon or too small are at increased risk for health problems. So stress can cause your baby to be born too early. Well, that's not good, because having your baby born too early can lead to long-term intellectual and development disabilities. These are problems with how the brain works. They can cause a person to have trouble or delays in physical development. So wait a minute, you're telling me that somebody that's stressed and pregnant, it can cause some serious problems. There's serious issues among this. And anyone with the slightest little knowledge about pregnant women, probably mainly women that have a lot of knowledge on this, could use it against someone, right? And it gets so much worse. Doing research on this is giving me a whole new perspective on how I am going to baby my wife so hard. It's going to be crazy. She cannot experience any stress. So on top of all that, high levels of stress during pregnancy may also be connected to autism in children. And something I found really interesting about stress and how it affects the baby and the baby all the way up into adulthood to when they're 40 years old, dealing with their stress. It's very interesting. According to this article I found by heart.org, the stress hormone cortisol plays a vital role in the body and in the fetal development. But when a woman is exposed to intense and prolonged stress during pregnancy, excessive levels of cortisol can disrupt development of the unborn child's brain. These changes in fetal brain circuitry can lead to hypersensitivity to stress later in life, Goldstein said, as well as immune system problems that can lay the groundwork for future vulnerability to diseases. She recently published a study in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showing middle-aged people who had been exposed in utero to abnormal levels of pro-inflammatory markers because of stress had poor stress regulation up to 45 years later. Her team's earlier work showed prenatal stress affects the unborn child's later risk for depression, psychosis, and heart disease. How crazy is it that just because you feel chronic stress, a lot of stress, that Your child is going to suffer from depression, psychosis, and heart disease all the way into their 40s. That's insane to me. And it really helps put into perspective what exactly Illuminati was doing to Madison. What happened to Madison was terrible, but looking at the facts and the science really helps me understand just how terrible it was and how scary it was for her. During prenatal development, the mother's experience cues the child for what the future may hold, Monk said. If the child is born into an environment rife with threats, being conditioned to respond to a high level of stress is a good thing. They will be more adept at handling a threatening environment, which might be beneficial to survival. The problem occurs when there's a mismatch between the way the child's brain has been conditioned and the environment into which that child is born. A child predisposed to react to high levels of stress but born into an environment that is safe and non-threatening may struggle with anxiety problems, Monk says, because that level of vigilance and reactivity is not needed. So what I get from that is basically if you were a hunter-gatherer, maybe in those times that stress would have been useful for the baby, especially as it gets older and it experiences the stress of like having to find food, surviving, stuff like that. Nowadays, if we experience that kind of stress and it bleeds over into the baby and then into their adulthood, that's where we get a lot of people that are dealing with all these anxiety issues. So not only will that child experience depression, psychosis, and heart disease, but they will also experience anxiety. That's insane. And as we all know, if you're experiencing stress, it can be extremely difficult to go to sleep. It can give you insomnia. And when pregnant women experience insomnia, it can increase their chances of not having a child by 32%. And I quote, they found that after 8 weeks of pregnancy, women who worked 2 or more night shifts the previous week had 32% increased risk of not having a child compared with women who did not work night shifts. So imagine you can't sleep one night and you're up all night, and then maybe your sleep schedule gets messed up and now you're on night shift. Or you can't go to sleep because you're so stressed out, so you stay up all night, all day, and then all night again. Well, that's probably more than a 32% increase, because that study was just done on people that have worked night shift. So what happens if you are so chronically stressed that you can't sleep? And then you got to take medicine for that. You got to take sleeping pills for that. And that's not even real sleep. That's synthetic sleep. And the reason why it's synthetic sleep is because it occurs from a drug. And also it makes it to where you don't get deep sleep, which is critical. Deep sleep or slow wave sleep supports memory, growth, and cell regeneration. Not getting enough may contribute to some health conditions, including heart disease and Alzheimer's disease. So you can see how if that is affecting you, imagine how it's going to affect the baby. And then on top of that, when you do take these drugs, they don't even let you access REM sleep, which is deep sleep, which is something you need, like I just read, or all that stuff could happen. While taking drugs like Ambien may help you become unconscious, sedated is not the same as sleep. These hypnotic drugs can actually restrict the deeper brain waves produced during REM sleep, leading to grogginess and forgetfulness the following morning. Studies have shown that benzo, a type of sleeping pill, could raise the risk of preterm birth, low birth weight, small for gestational age infants, and cesarean birth, aka C-section. Research has also raised the possibility that using these medications while pregnant could cause breathing problems in newborns. So when you take a deeper look at all this, it becomes this vicious cycle where stress is just causing all these issues, and then you're unable to sleep, and then you go to take sleeping pills, and it's just not the same thing. Maybe it'll get you there eventually. Maybe it's just like a vehicle you can use to get from point A to point B and then get out, and now you can sleep better. But my point stands that what Illuminati was doing to Madison goes so much deeper than just her losing her career. And I'm curious what you think after looking at all these facts and seeing the possibilities of what stress does, I'm curious what you think. Anyways, let me know what you think about the whole situation with the Illuminati, her intentions, and all of that. And if you haven't seen Madison's video, make sure you check it out. I'll put it in my description down below. Go watch it, especially the end of her video. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up. And if you're interested in supporting more content like this and get your name at the end of my videos, consider becoming a Patreon. You can check the link for that in the description as well. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.